was June last year that the federal government confirmed the launch of a direct grant program to support the careers of current and future Paralympians. Para Uplift poured just under $55 million. That's the biggest ever spend on para-athlete development, and came in response to what the Australian Sports Commission described as systemic and structural barriers to performance for para-athletes. On the weekend, Paralympics Australia CEO Cameron Murray just basically said we're good to go, declaring confidence that Australia's Paralympic team will top the medal tally in Brisbane 2032 with its biggest ever team. In Paris last year, Australia finished ninth, represented by its smallest team since 1988, perhaps a reflection on how far funding levels have fallen. So, is Cameron Murray's confidence warranted? Does $55 million change the game? Katie Kelly, OAM, is a Paralympic triathlete and a gold medalist. She also runs Sport Access Foundation, providing grants to young Australians living with disabilities to help them chase their sporting dreams. Katie, thank you so much for coming on this afternoon.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
I wanted to speak to you on this to help us, I guess, understand the magnitude of the challenge for para-athletes to even get to the Games and compete, let alone win a record number of gold medals. Firstly, I'd love your reaction to the confidence of Cameron Murray. We love to see a bit of confidence. Do you think the team will be bigger and better supported than ever before on the back of these funding improvements?
Yeah, as you said in the introduction, there's definitely been a significant increase in funding, which is really great to see. And, you know, we saw the result in Paris where Australia came ninth, which was probably our worst result. Certainly in Rio, we came fifth and Tokyo eighth. And there's no doubt that this funding is having a really great impact by way of setting up the funding program that's available through the Australian Institute of Sport. But also, Joel, they've set up para-sport elite units across our state institute bodies like the QAS and New South Wales Institute of Sport. And so what that means is that there are elite sporting hubs now that para-athletes can, go to one hub, have their training, have their classification, see the specialists that they need to. And I think we can be confident that the investment is being spent in the right way, and there's been a lot of good co-design and discussions with Paralympian athletes on what they need and what the high performance program needs.
We hear a lot, Katie, about where the money goes, and you've mentioned some of those aspects, of course, training facilities, specialised coaching, performance support at that elite level. Where else does parasport need the most attention? I guess we're looking at Paris, and as we mentioned, finishing ninth there and falling a little bit away in some of the team sports. Is that a sort of correlation to the funding challenge we're facing here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was our, it was really hard to see that a couple of our teams didn't qualify, including the women's goalball and the men's blind football team. And so the other teams that didn't go to Paris were wheelchair fencing, sitting volleyball and powerlifting. But also, we just didn't perform quite as well in our team sport like the men's rollers basketball team. And I guess you've got to think about the geographic challenges that we have in Australia, and our Paralympians are spread all across, and that the challenges of coming together as a unit and training regularly with those travel costs is significant, as well as, we've got those extra things that we need with our mobility devices, whether it's a tandem bike, specialised racing chairs. Someone like myself that's low vision, I'd always needed to travel with my guide. Yep. And I think that's what people are starting to see. Look, it's not all elite athletes. Obviously, it's a tough gig and trying to get money to compete and represent your country. But certainly this funding is closing that equity gap that athletes with disability face that athletes without disability don't have.
You're hearing from Katie Kelly at the moment. Katie Kelly is a Paralympic triathlete gold medalist. Katie Kelly, OAM, I should say as well. Katie runs this Sport Access Foundation. My apologies, Katie. That's an important addition. But basically, I wanted to talk to you on this because you're all about, with Sport Access Foundation, providing grants to young Australians living with disabilities, helping them chase their sporting dreams. I'd love to just ask you about funding and the concept of asking for funding. It can't be an easy thing to have to do while focusing on elite performance?
Yeah, I've had that personal experience, which is why I set up Sport Access Foundation, and we give out annual grants anywhere between $500 up to $2,000. And really proud to say, if I made it, 6 of our recipients went to Paris across 4 different sports. But certainly, when I went to Rio and Tokyo, I fundraised for my custom carbon tandem bike made in America, and I got the gold in Rio and came 5th in Tokyo. And it's really, I felt uncomfortable going out to my community, friends and family, asking for that support when everyone's, trying to make ends meet. So I think it's good that government recognise, hang on, there are barriers here that exist for people with disability, and they're around the cost, they're around program access, getting access to technology and equipment. And so that's really important that government has stepped in. The Australian Sports Commission have implemented these para units, as well as the individual grant program that people with disability aspiring to go to Paralympics can apply for. And I think that's a really good direct outcome to get money in the pocket of Paralympians where they need it, to give them every chance to, represent all of us in LA and Brisbane.
Katie, can I just ask you, because you mentioned Rio, obviously success winning the gold medal in Rio, but you needed that bike, that specialist bike, that carbon bike, not exactly the sort of thing you go down to the bike store or pick up on Marketplace. Can you give me an idea what that bike is worth, firstly?
Yes. It's $25,000, yeah.
Okay, so you had to fundraise $25,000 for your gear, but then you won the gold medal. The question I'm getting at here is you were an Paralympic gold medalist after fundraising. Surely that made the road easier for Tokyo, didn't it?
Well, in many ways, I guess I had, I had a record to point to in terms of that success.
Yeah.
And so with that, I was able to keep my funding. But in terms of that specialised equipment I needed, which was another customised tandem bike because I had a different guide, different height, I needed to go back out and find another $25,000 again. So I did that for community fundraising and so on. And I just would like to acknowledge that the Triathlon Australia and people in high performance sport could see that
yep.
They didn't necessarily have the funding to close that equity gap. And thankfully, this funding that we now have, we shouldn't have that kind of situation happening to our gold medalists from Paris as they try to get to LA.
Yeah, beautifully said. Thank you very, very much. And that funding challenge, and I guess some of the logistical challenge, as you say, different equipment, specialised training, but also guides and supports for para-athletes as well. There's a lot of other logistics that come into the equation. So basically, we're on a good track, and you're pretty confident that the attention that is most needed is being received at this time.
Yeah, I think so, Joel. And what I'm really pleased about is that inevitably this sort of investment, it filters back to community and grassroots. And so we're going to see, young Joel in Cairns or another young Katie out there in Harvey Bay. And they're 15, 16 now. They're doing triathlon or they're doing wheelchair basketball. They're getting that funding to help them participate at the highest level. And that should filter back through those communities so we see more of that integration of sport. And importantly, what we want to see, we know that only 25% of people with disability have access or play sport compared to 41% without. And so that's the gap we need to close. And I think we're all aspiring that Brisbane 2032 will result in a much healthier, inclusive Australian sport.
Katie Kelly, OAM Paralympic triathlete gold medalist. Very, very much appreciate you coming on. I left out one of your credentials as well, of course, a member of the Australian women's blind cricket team. So basically...
that was fun. Yeah.
Be quicker listing what you don't do, basically. Katie, very, very busy individual. Thank you so much for coming on. And I do appreciate the insights from your own experience and sort of paving that road forward with awareness and just understanding the magnitude and the scale of the challenge to even get to the Games for para-athletes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joel.